Hi, I'm Vanessa, and I love bad Star Trek. I break down the bad episodes of my favorite show so you don't have to watch it. I will be the POS HOA, that is Star Trek the Original Series, and today I will be talking to you about an episode called This Side of Paradise. The original series has one of the strongest season ones in Star Trek, but that doesn't mean it's without clunkers. The good news is that there were about 28 episodes, which is about 3 times what we got now, so mathematically speaking, you can kind of get away with sucking occasionally. Like the Man Trap was misogynist dreck, and This Side of Paradise is about as exciting as trying to find parking at a popular dog's funeral. This Side of Paradise comes right after one of my favorite episodes, one that I don't hear get mentioned too often, which is A Taste of Armageddon, where two worlds run computer simulated wars with each other and execute their own citizens en masse depending on the printout results. It's peak sci-fi and great Trek. So how did we go from sharp commentary about the banality of evil and justified fears in the face of new at the time technology to Spock swinging from a tree? I am the last person to stand in the way of Trek being mindless fun, but this is just mindless, and I don't think Trek needs to be. Just a disclaimer, there's no source for this. The analogy, though, is pretty heavy-handed, and it seems clear to me, at least, that this episode is an impeachment of hippie communes, which is a baffling choice, since Gene Roddenberry was inspired by the counterculture of the 1960s. This incident is not isolated either. Another TOS episode called The Way to Eden came out around season 3, and it was just very plainly anti-hippie. So what was up in the writer's room that they decided to go in this direction? Twice I tried in vain to figure out why he would alienate hippies. The only common denominator is DC Fontana. She was involved with both of these. But even more confusing, this is the episode that got her the job as story editor on Trek. So since she's done this anti-hippie thing more than once, is she like an acolyte, a former actor, and new fresh face on the scene? The newly elected California governor, Ronald Reagan? No, this is just some wacko vortex both episodes have coincidentally just spun into, and their end results just so happen to be completely antithetical to the message of the show for no reason. DC rewrote This Side of Paradise, which is initially called The Way of the Spores, and I think the title is likely the only noticeable improvement. And The Way to Eden was originally about McCoy and giving him backstory, so we're just randomly hating on hippies and who the hell knows why. DC Fontana was one of the only women writers at NBC at the time, and also helped co-write City on the Edge of Forever, one of the best Star Trek episodes ever, and also worked on several shows like Logan's Run, The Fantastic Journey, and $6 Million Man. So not trying to cast aspersions on her talent or anything, but G must have seen something amazing from this episode that I don't. So you might be asking, what's the problem? In summary, there's no conflict, which a plot needs in order to make it go. And it got her the job. As story editor, make it make sense. It's not like the characters' choices are sound either, or the dialogue resembles anything close to human speech. Sure, Sulu pondering the absence of chickens is the spark that lit the fire of DC's career. This episode has a surprisingly warm critical response, so something's not adding up here. Let's dig in. So the Enterprise pulls up to the driveway at Omicron Ceti 3 and tries to reestablish communications with a human colony that had about 150 people. And Spock says there is absolutely no way that there's any survivors of this human colony because the planet was in the direct path of Berthold rays, a phenomenon that was newly understood as lethal, which I guess is supposed to explain how a human colony got there at all. But then Spock goes on to say that they knew that there was a risk of disintegration because of those very rays.
You're saying that those people built a future in a place knowing they might not survive?
I'm saying they knew there was a risk.
If the risk of disintegration doesn't make you turn the car around and go home, what the hell does? What kind of pisspot county board approved these particular plats and plans? Whose palms did they have to grease in order to set up camp in a goddamn microwave? Kirk regards them as like brave pioneers. But how does one bravely disintegrate when there are other options available? Like not disintegrating, especially when it takes a week to do so, as Spock figures out later. No one noticed that their body was coming apart. The episode has barely even started, and there's already a hole wider than the empty space between Andrew Tate's ears. It's giving fucking around with a Yellowstone geothermic feature for Instagram kind of energy. With this week-long cushion, the crew's like, we're definitely safe enough to go do a landing party. But you have to ask, for what? There's no one down there. So Kirk, Spock, Bones, Sulu, and two other guys, one a biologist, take the form of carbonated urine and beam down. Kirk gives everyone this optimistic and uplifting speech to what appears to be an empty but otherwise Earth-like farm dedicated to the total idiots who insisted on living there.
Another dream that failed. There's nothing sadder. It took these people a year to make the trip from Earth. They came all that way and died
before some colonists appear, apparently alive, from behind a shed. To recap, there were no life signs, and apparently their radio was down, which absolutely no one in this entire human colony was qualified to fix. So there were no hails being made to the Enterprise. These people aren't supposed to be alive at all. They were supposed to be disintegrated, in fact. So the away teams got the ick. But just as Kirk drew conclusions about the colony before doing a physical search whatsoever, McCoy follows suit and makes a suspiciously certain statement.
Pure speculation, just an educated guess, I'd say that man is alive.
Considering that basic assumptions and scans have repeatedly been proven wrong, it makes sense that Spock, McCoy, Kirk, and Sulu would debate that, since there's lethal Berthold rays, which take a week to air fry people. But we are watching the crew of the Enterprise debate whether or not someone is alive after just talking to them.
These people shouldn't be alive.
Is it possible that they're not?
You shook hands with him, Jim. His flesh was warm. He's alive.
Boy, don't those jumpsuits look familiar? Maybe their brains have been absconded with as well. Or at least Sandoval, who explains that the reason they even settled there at all had to do with this being a prime agricultural planet. So they made sure not to end up like those other losers that tried before.
You see, Omicron is an ideal agricultural planet. We determined not to suffer the fate of expeditions that went before us.
Wait a second. They're not even the first to be there. They have gone where others have gone before and disintegrated. And they thought, you know what? The soil's worth the gamble. And we see that the overalls come in another silhouette known as the overall Keene, nipped in the waist and pointing right at her hoo-ha. As it tends to with TOS, the soft focus and the flute music that plays while the woman approaches and cutting back and forth to Spock indicates very heavily that Spock, 1, knows her, and that 2, he likely knows her in the biblical sense. Which I guess means that he cheated on T'Pring, to whom he was bonded before Amok Time. Maybe that's why Stan was in the picture. The plot thins. My favorite part is the next scene where Sulu and the biologist are shocked that there's no cows in a barn. But Sulu just said that he doesn't know a thing about farms, never mind what would be out of place. Which I guess would explain why he didn't say, wow, it smells like 30 different kinds of shit from miles around.
We haven't seen any animals. No horses, no pigs. Not even a dog.
Or hear a moo moo there, a cluck cluck there, hear a there a everywhere, and so forth. Why does it take them so long to notice that there is no animals? It's early days in TOS, so these colonists regard Spock as a Vulcanian, and Layla says that they were an item 6 years ago, but ultimately Spock said that he doesn't have the capacity to love, and that's why they split, which is BS from what we know now. So Sandoval goes, hey, would you like to have him here permanently? And she goes, yeah.
There is no choice, Elias. He will stay.
So we've got some semblance of stakes established, but then we just have more exposition going at a snail's pace. And McCoy uses an expression, I could throw away my shingle, which means that he's done thorough scans on everybody, and they're so healthy that there's no need for a doctor to even be here.
Ages from 23 to 59, they're all in perfect condition. Textbook responses. Heart, lungs, excellent. Coordination, excellent.
Which would add to the mystery before Spock interrupts them with something Sulu already told Kirk.
There seems to be a total absence of life on the planet, with the exception of the colonists themselves and various types of flora.
Sulu had the same observation. Any explanations?
I get that the mission is for them to figure out how the humans are still alive and why the animals are dead, even if they had some on the ship's manifest. That is a worthwhile thing to investigate. But a story editor might cut out some of the redundancies in place of advancing the plot. But since there is no plot, that's not really a concern, is it? And it's also not an issue that the crops that they grow are just enough to sustain the colony and not much more. As one crew member points out, Kirk calls this mystery a jigsaw puzzle, all one color. Why? Because everything is fine? There's no reason for you to even be there anymore? Like, sure, there's a culty vibe, but so what? That's what colonization of an empty planet is all about. Staying out of everybody else's hair while you make your ideal of a utopia. But then McCoy looks in the medical records and it shows that all the traces of surgery Sandoval had on Earth had vanished since coming on to Omicron Ceti 3. Scar tissue is gone and body parts have grown back. And most people would think, wow, that's pretty amazing. A planet that grows back body parts instead of disintegrating them. Wow, we are so way off with what we originally thought. But suddenly Kirk goes, hey everybody, hey. Starfleet Command wants us to evacuate y'all immediately, and you better start packing.
Mr. Sandoval, within the hour, I've received orders from Starfleet Command to evacuate all personnel from this colony. Naturally, you'll inform your people to begin preparation.
And at this point, the episode is searching desperately for a reason to continue. Because the only mystery here is why they're not dead, and the colonists have just decided at this point not to tell them. But they're fine. They're more than fine. Everyone's healthy, just not very forthcoming about why they're not dead, which describes most people. McCoy's like, but the Berthold rays, can't you understand? They're fine though. So what's the conflict? That they're frustratingly vague?
Your own instruments have shown that we're all in perfect health. We've had no deaths here.
Sandoval is absolutely right. There's no reason for the colonists to leave. So this leaves the episode needing something, anything, making it worth continuing to engage with. Anything. There's no conflict anymore. And they go with Spock being lured from a cornfield to hang out with Layla.
Yet your plants grow and you've survived the exposure to Berthold rays.
That can be explained
Please do.
later.
And she leads Spock to a weird plant that Sulu and the biologist just completely ignored before. And it becomes like this Dare commercial, except they're warning of the dangers of antidepressants that come in the form of spores.
Gives life, peace, love.
What you're describing was once known in the vernacular as a happiness pill.
That, not to be indelicate, blasts Spock right in the face and immediately gives him a migraine before a war crime is committed. Other than Spock being drugged here, which obviously is wrong, what is the problem? They're self-sustaining. don't need doctors, and have found a chemical antidepressant that had a slight adverse effect on a Vulcan before he pulled a stick out of his ass once and for all. Like, don't worry, the rest of the episode only gets more preposterous from here because Kirk forgets the name of the planet he's visiting.
We have been ordered by Starfleet Command to evacuate the colony on Omicron 3.
Before engaging in one of the most boring circular arguments.
Excuse me.
Excuse me. My orders are to remove all the colonists. And that's exactly what I intend to do, with or without your help.
Without, I should think.
Imagine if someone just showed up at your house on land you bought and was like, yeah, I'm just gonna have to ask you to leave for a reason I just made up. That's not anything white people have ever done before. Why not talk about how Starfleet makes dumb calls sometimes? When they're naturally uncooperative, McCoy goes, want me to use a butterfly net on him? These people are fine. Like, did DC intend to make Starfleet look like ableist, cranky assholes whose rigidity is causing them to pointlessly disrupt somebody else's peace? I mean, there's one turd in the punch bowl. And oh wait, it's just Layla soothing Spock's Ina Garten baby bangs under a big old tree after getting a face full of spores. He's been drugged without consent, which is wrong. This also comes up in the animated series, strangely enough, and it was wrong there as well. But it's not so much the spores that become the enemy here, so much as what the spores do that Kirk takes issue with. Like, enjoy life. Like, how dare you? More people get hit with spores against their will. More people are just hanging out as a result. After McCoy beams a bunch of plants up from the surface, you know, why wouldn't Kirk tell the ship about this plant knowing that it was the source of the problem and whatever?
Hiya, Jimmy boy. Hey, I've taken care of everything. Now, all y'all got to do is just relax. Doctor's orders.
How many of those did you beam up?
Oh, must be might nigh on to 100 by now.
Because that's the only way the worst scene here happens, where Uhura is only on screen for just long enough to tell Kirk that she has short-circuited the communications except for ship to surface. Why does everyone else get to be casual, relaxed, if a bit rambunctious, or passively disobedient, while Uhura actively sabotages the ship? And the crew suddenly want to beam to the surface, so the plant doesn't make everyone just chill out. They're abandoning all connection to the modern world and then going to chill out. And McCoy becomes more southern.
Hey, Jim boy. Y'all ever have a real cold Georgia-style mint julep?
Then suddenly we get the explanation of what the spores do.
You see, they actually thrive on Berthold rays. The plants act as a repository for thousands of microscopic spores until they find a human body to inhabit.
Why were they so stupidly vague before? Did the colonists not bank on the crew ever finding out where the flowers are everywhere? But let's take a step back and actually listen carefully to what Sandoval is saying.
In return, they give you complete health and peace of mind. We have no need or want, Captain.
In exchange for getting blasted in the face, have perfect health and a perfect home. But Kirk's like, no, that's not natural.
Man stagnates if he has no ambition, no desire to be more than he is.
We have what we need.
Except a challenge.
Objectively, though, what is wrong with any of that? If Kirk doesn't want to go, he's got a fully functioning ship right there. But even on autopilot, he claims he can't go alone. But let's think of this through. Like, what's the worst case scenario? More people show up and enjoy themselves free of worry or need of anything? Kirk gets another face full of spores before realizing why the spores don't affect him.
Violent emotions, needs anger.
Because he's an asshole. And Kurt gets the idea, like, wait, maybe if I'm just like a total dick to other people, I can get them to snap out of it too. The first person he chooses for this is Spock, but he risks, in his words, arousing Spock, which would kill Kirk. I mean, the jokes just write themselves at this point. Jesus Christ. So now Kirk just verbally abuses his own boyfriend now.
All right, Jujubee.
I'm not nervous. I'll read a bitch. I will read you to filth.
All right, you mutinous, disloyal, computerized half-breed. We'll see about you deserting my ship. What makes you think you're a man? You're an overgrown jackrabbit, an elf with a hyperactive thyroid.
I don't understand.
Of course you don't understand. You don't have the brains to understand. All you have is printed circuits. What can you expect from a simpering, devil-eared freak?
This relationship is so toxic. It's like watching 90 Day Fiancé on so many xenophobic levels. Like, he's going full-blown racist against Vulcans here. But it's okay, because it's not actually Spock and Kirk fighting, it's just these two other guys. Nothing snaps people out of being kind and carefree quite like violently racist statements from a loved one. Spock is like smacking around a captain, generally frowned upon, usually a court-martial offense, so I should probably go to the brig. But Captain Kirk goes, then who's gonna help me do the plan to just piss off our entire crew at the same time? Ah, come on, you know you wanna. Traumatizing people by provoking horrible emotions is how I'm going to get my crew back. Just what do you say? But his girlfriend called and he's like, well, I gotta break up with overalls now. So he beams her up to tell her goodbye. I already got a boyfriend. Even after the spores wear off, she still says that she loves him. But then Spock fixes the radio, sends a weird signal, and the crew all start fighting each other on the surface. Which is for their own good, you see. Like when McCoy drunkenly punches Sandoval while holding a mint julep.
Oh, no?
You'd like to see just how fast I can put you in a hospital?
And they all snap out of it, and they drunkenly see that just hanging out, being happy, and growing plants to feed themselves was the absolute worst way to spend 3 years that they could ever conceive of.
We've done nothing here. No accomplishment, no progress. 3 years wasted.
So now the colonists are like, oh my God, we need to go back to work and be contributing members of society. We became worthless, shifty bastards who just sit around all day and enjoy ourselves and work for exactly what we need and nothing more, exploit nobody, and mind our own fucking business. What a nightmare. Kirk's smug smirk at the end just irritated me so much. The wrong thing was drugging people without their permission, obviously, giving Spock and the crew no option to control their emotions or focus on what they wanted to. Story-wise, though, who is the antagonist? Spores that make people content to sit on their ass, cure every malady ever, and motivate them to grow a sustainable farm? Oh no. I really hope DC didn't write this closing speech that Captain Kirk gives, cause PU.
Maybe we were meant to fight our way through. Struggle. Claw our way up. Scratch for every inch of the way.
We were meant to struggle and claw. Kirk, I'm sorry, you sit there as you fly at the speed of light, eating replicated food. You even cheated on your exit exam at the academy. What struggle are you referring to exactly? The one where you ridiculed Spock into rejoining your crew and manipulating others to do the same? Doesn't this make you look like the villain, Captain Kirk? Violence is the answer? That's the message we're meant to get out of this? What the fuck? This is bizarro Trek. That's not to say that there's no valid criticisms to make of hippies, who some saw as rather superficial with their calls for peace and love, seeing it as a trend rather than a legitimate social movement.
There were hippies. We hated hippies. I mean, flower power, burning bras. What the fuck is wrong with you?
This love, peace crap, we hated that. Get real. Everybody wants to have a peaceful world and not get shot in the head or something, but you cannot change minds by handing a flower to some bozo who wants to shoot you. There should have been helping homeless people or do something about it. Don't walk around with your flowers in your hair.
Activism also wasn't intersectional. It was so often co-opted by white or white-appearing people who centered their own experiences. Like feminism. It left everyone who wasn't cis or white behind. And those liberal hippies became boomers, otherwise known as ladder kickers, holding 10 times the wealth as millennials. But this incoherent fable warning of the sins of sloth using a soft launch of the spore Borg really shows that resistance isn't only futile, it doesn't even make sense. Spock gets backstory, I guess, but now he's keeping something from T'Pring. This is improbable, even by Star Trek standards. So we got two in-world possibilities. One is that everyone simultaneously shat their brains out, literally. Or this is an elaborate plan set in motion by Spock to indulge in a rare kink of meeting random women to roll around in spores. That was literally a Craigslist ad I heard. Come and make love while we're swimming in spores is almost a direct quote. Because otherwise, it's about people too stupid to avoid an obvious danger, had their shit work out by accident until Kirk showed up, acted like an asshole until they all left. A place that fed, cured, protected them from every single illness. If there was a message here, it's completely lost. Like, subscribe, no pressure, but peer pressure. Till next time, I guess.